I used to think love was a story that, once told, simply drifted into a quiet, satisfied ending. A husband, a house, a child. Maybe that was the story I wanted to believe when I married Greg. He was older, 10 years my senior, and back then, that made him feel safe. Like he knew things I didn't. Like he could anchor me. But anchors, I've learned, don't always keep you grounded. Sometimes they just keep you stuck. It's not that Greg was cruel. Not really. He was just cold. He hadn't told me I looked beautiful in more years than I could count. The compliments faded long before the laughter did, and now even silence is something we barely share. He spends most of his time behind a screen, his face blue-lit by financial reports and news articles he doesn't speak to me about. We live together, yes, but often it feels like we occupy two entirely different timelines that happened to bump into each other once and never merged again. Jack was the only real light in our home. My son.
My boy.
Now 30, with a life of his own, a wife, a house just down the street, but still, somehow always mine. He comes over often. Maybe more than a married man should. But Kate, his wife, is kind about it. She likes that Jack and I are close. She calls us two peas in a pod, and I smile politely, though I don't have the heart to tell her that it's not quite that simple. You see, Jack and I have always had a bond that went beyond the usual mother-son tenderness. Even as a little boy, he'd come to me with his scraped knees and tangled thoughts, needing to talk, needing to be understood. And I always understood him. In ways Greg never did. Jack was bright, thoughtful, curious, and so often, heartbreakingly lonely in his own quiet, analytical mind. I saw myself in him. I still do. Now, when he visits, it's as if time folds back into itself. He knocks on the back door without waiting for me to answer, steps inside like he never left, and heads straight for the kettle. Want tea, Mom? He always asks, though he already knows the answer. Last Tuesday, we sat on the back porch as the sun dipped behind the trees, the sky bleeding orange into mauve. He told me about work, his team at the architectural firm, a new client who was a nightmare. I listened, watching how his hands moved when he got passionate, how his brow furrowed when he was frustrated. He's grown into such a striking man, tall, with that lean, athletic frame that still carries the boy I raised. His eyes are the same as they were when he was 7 and crying because he thought I wouldn't be there when he woke up from surgery. Kate wants to get a dog, he said, blowing across his tea. I think she feels lonely when I'm at work. I gave a small nod. It's good she wants something to care for. He looked at me then, with an expression I've come to recognize. It's not just affection, it's knowing. A kind of awareness that lingers between us, deep and unspoken. I think she's trying to fill a space, he added quietly. I didn't ask what space. I already knew. That night, after he left, I found myself standing in front of the mirror longer than usual. I'm 50. My hair is more silver now than not. My waist has softened. My eyes, once vivid, are framed by stories. Crow's feet, they call them. I touched my cheek and thought of the way Jack had looked at me. Not as a son looks at his mother.
No.
There was something else in his gaze. Something he didn't say. And something I didn't dare name. But it wasn't always this way. When he was a boy, I was his world. We'd spend hours in the garden, planting seeds and whispering about the future. I'd let him stay up late to watch the stars, wrapped in a blanket on the lawn, his small head resting on my lap as I told him stories about the constellations. He'd always ask the same question, what if I never stop needing you? And I'd answer the same way. Then I'll never stop being here. Kate is good to him, I know. She bakes. She keeps their home tidy. She laughs at his jokes, even when they're not funny. And yet, Jack comes to me when he needs to be heard, when the world feels too heavy, when something inside him needs to remember who he is. Sometimes we cook together, our secret ritual. He chops vegetables while I stir sauces, and we talk about everything and nothing. It's in those moments I feel closest to him, and farthest from Greg, my husband, who hasn't stepped into the kitchen with me in years, who eats in silence, who compliments the food but never the woman who made it. Last Friday, Jack lingered after dinner. Greg had gone to bed early, with a headache. I poured us both a glass of wine, and we sat in the living room, the soft hum of the old record player filling the space. You ever wish things had turned out differently? He asked, not looking at me. The question struck something in me. Sometimes, I said. But then I look at you and think, maybe not. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I wanted to ask him what he meant. I wanted to ask what he thought might have been different, but the words caught in my throat, because part of me was afraid to hear the answer. Later, as I lay in bed beside Greg's silent, turned back, I kept hearing Jack's voice in my head. You ever wish things had turned out differently?
Yes. God, yes.
But what am I allowed to want? I am Amanda. I am a wife. I am a mother. I am 50 years old, with a life that looks perfectly ordinary from the outside. But inside, something is stirring. Something that looks a lot like longing. Like remembering who I was before I became invisible. And Jack, my beautiful, complicated son, he sees me. And I see him. More than I should. More than I dare to say. It started with something as simple and ordinary as bending to pick up a towel. That was all. A towel. Not even a heavy one. I reached down and felt it, this white-hot shock, like someone had struck lightning down the middle of my back. I froze, half bent, breath caught somewhere in my ribs, unable to stand up or even cry out properly. Pain is strange when it takes over suddenly. It isn't just the hurt, it's the helplessness. The indignity of it. I stayed there, one hand on the counter, trying to breathe through it, trying to will it away. Greg was in his office, one room away. I called out once, softly at first, maybe too softly, but when there was no response, I called again, louder. Nothing. I shuffled, inch by inch, to the couch and collapsed onto it, pressing my cheek against the cushion and waiting. Waiting for him to notice something was wrong. Waiting for his footsteps to come down the hall. He never came. I don't know how long I lay there. An hour? 2? The pain had softened into a dull throb by then, but I still couldn't move without flinching. Finally, I picked up my phone and called the one person who had come without needing to be asked twice.
Jack.
He answered on the first ring. Hey, Mom. What's up? My voice cracked before I could make it steady. Jack. I need your help. I can't move. My back, something's wrong. The silence on the line was instant and sharp. Then, I'm coming now. Don't move. Don't do anything. I'll be there in 10. And he was. 9 minutes, actually. He let himself in with his key, one I'd given him when he and Kate moved nearby, just in case. He found me still on the couch, my body twisted and tight, and I could see the panic in his face the moment he stepped into the room. Mom, what happened? He asked, dropping to his knees beside me. His hand brushed the side of my arm, warm and steady. Tell me exactly what you felt. When did it start? I just reached down, I murmured, wincing, for the towel, and something snapped. He exhaled slowly, his fingers grazing my lower back as gently as possible. Here, he asked. I nodded. Jack pulled out his phone and called someone, his friend Thomas, a sports medicine doctor. I heard their conversation in bits and pieces. Lumbosacral strain, probably. No, she can't move much. Okay, yes, I'll get that. Gel, massage, light stretches daily?
Got it.
He hung up and looked at me. He says it's nothing serious, but it'll take some time. He wants you to apply gel to the lower back, then start with gentle massage, and later, light exercise. Nothing intense, just walking, some mobility stretches. I nodded. I don't think I can do much of anything right now. Jack smiled gently. That's okay. I'll take care of it. And he did. He went out, bought the gel, and returned within the hour. Greg, as far as I knew, still hadn't realized I'd been on the couch all afternoon. He never even came out of the office. Let's try this, Jack said, kneeling beside the couch again. I'll be careful.
He was.
He warmed the gel in his hands first, and then slowly, gently, touched my lower back, his palms working in slow circles, pressing just enough to help the muscle loosen. I flinched a few times, and every time he stopped immediately. Okay, he asked.
Yes.
Keep going. It's helping. And it did help. More than I expected. His hands were strong but kind, and the warmth from the gel, combined with his touch, started to melt something inside me. Not just pain, but something else I couldn't name. Jack came back the next day. And the next. Each time, he brought something, a tea for inflammation, a soft heat pack, a playlist he said would help me relax. But it was the massage I began to look forward to. His hands, familiar yet suddenly unfamiliar, had begun to unlock more than tension in my body. I found myself noticing things I shouldn't. The curve of his forearm, the focus in his expression, the way he brushed my hair aside with such tenderness before starting. The scent of his skin, clean, faintly woodsy, lingered in the air after he left. What was I doing? What was I thinking? He was my son. But the thoughts came anyway, uninvited and persistent. One afternoon, about a week in, Jack arrived wearing his old college hoodie and gym shorts, his hair damp from a morning run. I was sitting up more easily now, but the pain still pulsed if I moved too fast. He smiled when he saw me and said, "You're looking better already." I smiled back, trying not to stare too long. "I feel better. Thanks to you." "Don't thank me yet," he said, setting the gel on the table. "You've got another week of this before we start the exercises." I nodded and turned, lying down carefully as I had each day. I felt his hands again, warm and steady, pressing into the muscle in small, practice motions. But that day, something shifted. His thumb brushed along the base of my spine, and I felt a jolt, not of pain, but of something warmer.
Softer.
It settled deep in my chest and bloomed outwards, uncoiling into something terrifying. I held my breath, and I felt it, that same shift in him. His hands paused just briefly, his breath catching almost imperceptibly. Neither of us said anything, but I know he felt it too. The warmth between us wasn't just from the gel or the skin. It was something else, something unfamiliar and unwelcome and yet real. When he left that day, he looked back at me, hesitating at the door. I could see something in his eyes, a question neither of us dared ask. I sat alone for a long time after he left, the scent of peppermint gel still lingering in the air, trying to understand what had just happened. Why Jack? Why, when I hadn't felt anything for any man in years, not even my husband, did this strange warmth grow only when Jack was near? I hated myself for even thinking it, for even allowing the possibility of the thought to exist. But it was there, and it wasn't going away. And the worst part? I didn't want it to. I never thought the word love would terrify me again. Not at 50. Not after all the years, the sacrifices, the quiet aches buried beneath routine. But it did. Because this time it was different. This time, love came like a whisper I couldn't silence. And worse, it had a name.
Jack.
My son. No, my grown son. A man with his own life. His own wife. And still, the person whose presence made me feel more like a woman than I'd felt in decades. I tried to reason with myself, to remind myself of the lines that could not, should not be crossed. And yet, every time he came through that door with his easy smile and his hands that had memorized every curve of my aching back, those lines blurred like breath on glass. And when he left, I felt like I'd been dropped into silence again.
Cold.
Empty. I told myself it was the massages, the vulnerability of pain, the intimacy of care. I told myself it wasn't real.
Couldn't be.
But then he'd look at me, not like a boy looking at his mother, but like a man seeing someone he needed, and all my defenses would crumble like old plaster. I fell in love with him. I did. Not suddenly and not with fanfare. It was a slow unraveling, thread by golden thread, until I woke one morning and realized that the thought of Jack made my chest ache in that old, familiar way I hadn't felt since Greg once whispered, "I adore you," in our younger years. Before life turned him distant. Before I became invisible to the man who vowed to love me. But unlike with Greg, this new love didn't lift me. It destroyed me. Because I couldn't tell anyone. Especially not him. Guilt wrapped its fingers around my throat like ivy, creeping deeper every day. I stopped sleeping. I lost my appetite. I avoided mirrors because I couldn't bear to look at myself and wonder, who are you becoming? One morning, as Jack poured me tea and offered his usual lopsided grin, I couldn't take it anymore. "Jack," I said quietly, "I think you should stop coming for a while." His brow furrowed. "Why?" I tried to smile, but it collapsed halfway. "I just need space. A week or two." He hesitated, searching my face. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," I said quickly, too quickly.
No, sweetheart.
"You didn't. It's not you." But it was him. It was everything about him. He nodded slowly, but I could tell he didn't believe me. "Okay," he said, "if that's what you want." And just like that, he was gone. For a week, I lived in silence. Greg didn't notice. Or if he did, he didn't ask. I was a shadow in our house, moving from room to room without direction. I tried to distract myself, cooking, gardening, organizing drawers no one ever opened, but Jack's absence sat beside me in every room like a ghost I couldn't exorcise. I replayed our conversations in my head, his touch on my back, the heat between us that neither of us had dared to name. I told myself I needed to forget it, that I was sick, that I was a terrible mother. that I had to kill this feeling before it ruined everything. But the more I tried, the more it consumed me. Then one Friday evening, the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there he was, Jack, in jeans and a navy sweater, holding a bottle of wine. "I think I understand everything," he said softly. My breath caught. "No," I whispered. "You don't." But I knew he did, and that terrified me more than anything. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. Greg wasn't home. He'd gone to his friend Dale's to watch the Mets game. He wouldn't be back until late. Maybe that was why Jack had come. We sat in the living room, just the two of us. I poured the wine with shaking hands. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear myself think. "I'm sorry," I said at last, not looking at him. I must have gone crazy. I felt something I shouldn't have felt. Jack didn't flinch. He didn't shift in his seat. He just looked at me with eyes that held so much tenderness, I thought I might cry. "You don't have to apologize," he said. "I get it." "No, you don't." I swallowed hard. "You have Kate. You have a life. And I'm just this woman who's forgotten what it means to feel seen. And I confused that with something else. My voice broke. It's shameful. You're my son." "Stop," he said, his voice low but steady. "Don't do that. Don't turn it into something ugly." I stared at him, tears burning behind my eyes. "You've spent your whole life giving," he said. "And with a man like my father, how could you not feel empty? He doesn't love you the way you deserve. He never has. You've gone years without affection, without being held, without someone reminding you that you matter." My lip trembled. He leaned closer. "Of course you felt something. Of course it happened. It's not your fault." I closed my eyes. "I don't know how to carry this, Jack. I don't know how to live with it." He reached out and gently took my hand. "Then let me carry some of it for you," he said. "Don't worry about what I think. I'm not judging you. I never did. But I love you," he said quietly, cutting me off. "And I don't mean that in some abstract, safe, parental way. I see you. The way you laugh when you don't think anyone's looking. The way you get quiet when you're hurting but pretend to be fine. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're just human." The room was spinning. I pressed my hand to my chest, trying to calm the chaos inside me. Jack's hand was still wrapped around mine, warm and unshaking. "I'll make you laugh," he said, his voice soft and sure. "I'll take care of you. You don't have to be afraid anymore. Not of this. Not of me." And then I did cry. Not because of guilt, but because for the first time in years, someone looked at me and didn't see just a wife or a mother. He saw me. That night felt like it lived outside of time. The room, the walls, the ticking clock above the mantel, they all faded. There was only Jack, sitting beside me, holding my hand like he had the right to, like it was the most natural thing in the world.
And maybe it was.
Maybe what was unnatural wasn't this, but the way I'd been living before. I had spent so many years folding myself into the cracks of someone else's life, waiting for Greg to see me, to touch me, to ask how I was and really listen to the answer. But he never did, and I had let that become normal. I had convinced myself that love was duty, that affection was reserved for newlyweds and movies, that once a woman turned a certain age, she became something invisible, useful, but not adored. Jack had undone all of that with one look, one touch, one truth I never expected to hear. "I love you too." After I cried, we sat in silence for a long time. Not uncomfortable silence. Something softer, healing. I could feel it between us, this new space opening up where shame had once lived. "I haven't felt like myself in a long time," I admitted. "I forgot who I was before everything." Jack leaned his head back against the couch, his gaze still on me.
"I've always seen her," he said.
"Even when you didn't." I looked down at our hands. Mine smaller, worn. His younger, stronger. But there was no power struggle there. Only comfort. Connection. It would have been so easy to give in fully in that moment. To lean into him. To let everything else fall away. But I didn't. Not yet. Because the world still lived outside this room. Greg would be home soon. Jack still had Kate. And the part of me that still held to duty, still wore the mask of mother and wife, wasn't quite ready to break it all. So we didn't kiss. We didn't touch more than that one hand in the other. But something irreversible had happened. The words had been said. The truth had been laid bare. Jack left just before midnight. I watched him walk to his car from the front window, the wine bottle empty on the coffee table, my heart full and aching in a way I didn't have words for. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I sat up in bed long after Greg returned, his body sagging into the mattress without a word, already half asleep before he even turned off the light. He didn't notice the whine on my breath. He didn't ask why I wasn't lying down. He didn't wonder why I was staring out the window like a woman who had seen something she couldn't unsee. I spent the next few days suspended in a strange dream. Jack didn't come by. We didn't text. We didn't call. And yet, I felt him everywhere. In the empty teacup by the sink. In the towel I had bent to pick up, the one that started this all. In the way I caught myself smiling at nothing, then blushing like a schoolgirl. Then one afternoon, I heard a knock. Not the back door, our usual casual entrance, but the front. I opened it, and there he was again. No whine this time. Just a soft smile, and something in his hands. 2 pairs of walking shoes. Thought we'd start the exercises like Thomas said, he said. Figured I'd make good on my promise to help you feel strong again. I laughed, a real, honest laugh, and stepped aside to let him in. We walked that afternoon, just around the block, slow and careful, with Jack offering his arm like we were a pair from another time. He made me laugh with stories from college, bad jokes, small confessions about things he was too shy to tell me when he was a teenager. I realized then how much of his world I had never been allowed to see, not as a mother, but as a woman. When we got home, I made tea, and we sat on the porch like old friends who had just rediscovered one another. Are you scared? He asked suddenly, eyes searching mine. I paused.
Yes.
A little. He nodded. Me too. But it doesn't feel wrong, I added quietly. He reached for my hand again. That same quiet gesture.
No.
It doesn't. That night, something shifted again. Not in action, but in certainty. I had tried so hard to bury what I felt for Jack in shame. But the more I tried to deny it, the more it bloomed, stubborn and wild, like something that had been waiting all along. Greg noticed something, eventually. You've been lighter lately, he said one night over dinner. You seeing someone? I nearly dropped my fork. What? I asked, startled. He chuckled bitterly. I meant a doctor. For your back. Oh, I said.
Yes.
Jack's been helping me. Greg just grunted and went back to his food.
That was his way.
No curiosity. No deeper interest. A man who lived beside me but hadn't seen me in years. I began to ask myself difficult questions. What would I be giving up if I chose to listen to my heart? What would it mean to follow this impossible love? And one morning, as I looked at my reflection in the mirror, really looked, I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Not beauty, necessarily, but aliveness. A soft glow behind my eyes. A flush in my cheeks. A quiet knowing. Love doesn't always arrive wrapped in perfect shapes. Sometimes it slips in through cracks we tried to seal long ago. Sometimes it comes disguised as wrong when it is, in truth, the first right thing we've felt in years. And sometimes it wears the face of someone who knows your heart better than anyone else. Someone like Jack.